But man, I mean, do those chapters take you to some really unique and diverse locations, like from the sandy dunes of the beginning of the game to the snow-capped mountains that felt larger than life. I mean, you truly felt like every section of the game truly felt like something different, and you felt like you were in a whole new area, and I just wanted to explore every inch of it. I mean, every element of this game worked out so well and felt so beautifully done, from start to finish. I mean, truly. And combining that with the unique mechanic of movement, you know, where you're on this like kind of skimmer of sorts going into all these different areas was so cool. So cool. And I love the point that you guys mentioned about that this game presented such a beautiful story without any words. Some of my favorite games that I've played, some of my favorite indie games are games that I've experienced that have no dialogue. And I think they perfectly illustrate what is so beautiful in games, and really what's the most important aspect to me in games. It's a feeling that a game is able to present to you without muddying it with all these other details. As much as I love dialogue in games and I love voiceovers and I love characters, I always love simplicity in games. And I love a game that's able to take a mechanic or, you know, an art style and really just have that be the focus. You know, that's what I love so much about, I always reference Neva, and I often reference Grease, because those are some of my favorite indie games of all time. In both of those games, there is zero dialogue, but there's more feeling in those games than most games that you'll play that have dialogue, because it's the art style, it's the movement, it's the music, it's all of those things combined that pull you in, that really pull you into the experience. And that's exactly what I feel like Sword of the Sea did. I mean, it has top tier movement. The gameplay feels fresh and exciting. It has what I feel to be just such a beautiful musical score, from the intense moments that felt intense to the somber, easy moments that felt relaxing and cozy. I mean, it feels like they nailed it. And I say this in every time I talk about music in games or movies or TV shows. Like anytime I'm watching a piece or consuming a piece of media, I always pay attention to the music, whether it's the song choice in a trailer or the musical score that's used to highlight a beautiful or sad moment in a movie or a TV show. I'm always listening to the music. I have an obsession with music and scores and how those, and sometimes the choice of a song can really detract from the moment. I mean, I've seen it before where songs were used and they just didn't really fit the scene, you know, but when it does, when it's done right and the perfect song accompanies the perfect moment, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful synchronization of things. You know, finishing games for me is part of the reason why I got indie games. I mean, when we started this channel, you know, we really wanted to highlight, the underdogs, and we wanted to highlight games that are backed by passionately creative people who just want to share their passions with other people. And they didn't have the backing of big studios. They didn't have the backings of finance or money. All they had was passion and the creativity to push them forward each and every day to create something meaningful. And when I picked up Grease for the first time, when I played Journey, you know, when I've played so many of the other indie games that we've experienced, I have had that feeling, and I've been reminded why we kind of dove into this, into stories like this with the purpose that we wanted to. You know, it felt like everybody was playing the big games. Everybody was playing the AAA games. Everybody was playing, you know, all the same things, and they were talking about all the same things. And I wanted to talk about the games that just weren't getting talked about enough. You know, I wanted to be kind of that source of, you know, the voice for the voiceless, you know, in a way. No pun intended. I know this game doesn't have dialogue, but the point was, like, what I focused on in games and the things that I really enjoyed, it didn't feel like were the focus anymore, you know? And I wanted to bring back the focus and the conversation to games that are really highlighting what is important in games. And and what's always been important to me in games. And those are games that made you feel something, games that reminded you why you were here on this planet, to share an experience and have an experience and have a feeling, whether that be cathartic or, you know, something else, like just to feel something, to share a memory, you know, to reflect, you know. And some of my favorite games of all time are games that I still think about because they left you with a feeling and they left you thinking about something. You know, I think about Mario 64 all the time, you know, and even if, and it's a game that, yeah, maybe not as graphically, you know, evolved as some games that exist today, but playing Mario 64 and the music and all that stuff will just make you feel something. It'll bring you back to a time. It'll make you feel nostalgic. It'll make you feel reminiscent. It'll make you feel excited. You know, I feel like that with The Last of Us. I mean, that was a game that completely took me by surprise, you know. And then I think about that with so many other smaller games. And I think that that's the coolest thing. Truly, truly the coolest thing. So I don't know. I feel like perhaps this is recency bias. But I genuinely feel like this is going to become one of those games on that Mount Olympus for me of just truly perfect experiences. Like, I consider Greece a perfect game. I also consider Neva a perfect game that evolved on an already perfect game. You know, I don't know. I also consider this to potentially be a perfect game, for me at least. I think the length of it was great. I was left wanting more, which I think is always a great thing. But I feel like from what I got, it was enough. I feel like I never got bored of the experience, which is important for me. You know, I think we live in an era where games, I think many games have become too long, where you kind of lose yourself a little bit. You know, it's like an era of films that we live in where it feels like so many movies are coming out that are minimum 3 hours, where 3 hours used to be only saved for, like, you know, very select films were hitting the 3 hour mark. And I think a lot of that comes with like money and like costs and things like that. But then for some reason, somewhere down the line within the last 10 years, it's felt like more and more movies are 3 hours. And that's a lot. It's a lot. It's a long commitment. And a lot of those movies, you get through about half of it and you're like, oh, I kind of could have ended here. You know, I feel like this was good enough. Maybe 2 hours. I think 2 hours is it's a great, you know, time frame. But I don't know. This game, with the 3 hours that we spent in it, it felt just long enough to deliver a message, to deliver a feeling, and also leave you wanting more. Like, I could have continued playing and would have felt good. But I'm glad that it ended where it did. You know, it felt complete, you know? So as far as like the runtime for this game, I genuinely feel like this game it hit the sweet spot. You know, it was perfect. Now, when we talk about the journey, we can't do so without talking about the chapters. Now, I mean, all of these areas felt very unique, felt very different, and each one presented a very interesting gameplay mechanic, you know, something that it was either evolved from earlier in the game or something that was completely new. Like the Veiled Sea, a beautiful start. And when you start like this game, you start in the Veiled Sea and it feels very reminiscent of Journey. You've got the sand dunes. It feels larger than life. You feel like you have this playground that you can instantly jump into and feel consumed by. Then you get to the Lost Grotto, which takes you underground, and you feel like you're in this kind of like mysterious cave. There's these wide open gaps. The color palette changes from this like vibrant orangish, yellowish, tannish hue to something a bit more calming, almost like eucalyptus in a way. It's got this these jade green crystals, and you still see the orange and the light kind of peeling through from the desert above. Really interesting stuff. I love the Forbidden Valley. I would say that presented a mechanic that I was not expecting, getting to ride atop a dolphin as you skate through more desert dunes, which is really cool. But I would say the Shadow Tundra. The Shadow Tundra, easily my favorite area in the game. for so many reasons. I could talk about this area endlessly, but it just felt wide open. The snowy area just felt like the perfect fit for being on this kind of skimmer snowboard thing. I mean, the speedy boost that you could do really allowed you to just zip through the area. I was so impressed graphically, like technically, by the fact that there was no, there weren't any like frame drops, at least for me. It's still, no matter how fast we were going, it still felt smooth. It felt like absolute butter. For a game that's really kind of like backed by the emphasis of being this surfing through the streets and surfing through the desert, you know, you have to have great movement. And no matter how fast you're going, we felt like we were in control. We felt like we could explore, and it was great. The frozen tundra, even better, because we get to ride a shark in that area, which was insane. I would say a close second for me was probably the Sacred River, though. I love the music choice. The music in this section was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I would say the Sacred River, the Shadow Tundra, and maybe I would say the Veiled Sea have potentially the best music in the entire game. Like, this area was actually, I think, the darkest area that we explore in the game. But the falling stars, or the shooting stars, the colors, the blues and everything, it was so nice. And it felt very Abzu. And if you guys have played that game, then you obviously know what I'm getting at there. But it was able to make a dark area feel like a night sky, which is really interesting. And I loved it. I mean, we spent a lot of time in this area. The Boiling Cavern, it was okay. It was okay. I mean, it felt very end of the game. You know, I felt like once we got here, it felt like we were getting towards the end. You know, something about lava and fiery sections of games just smells like the end of the game. I don't know if that also feels very Mario 64 to me, when we would go face Bowser multiple times through the game and we would end up at it was always fire areas. I don't know why. You know, there's always lava and fire. So to me, that just, like, in my brain, that just feels, you know, whenever I see a fire area, I just feel like we're the end. And then an epic conclusion in the Sky Abyss was just so cool. Even the Boiling Cavern was visually cool. It was really cool. The Boiling Cavern was very neat. Very, very neat. The Sky Abyss, a phenomenal conclusion to a phenomenal game. But I wasn't expecting to have like an emotional reaction to the connection that we have with this other character who comes in and aids us throughout parts of the game. And then the moment in which we get to ride on the same skimmer together, which presented a new ability for us to use. It's just stuff like that where it felt like the game was constantly evolving on itself and in a beautiful way. And you felt like you were still playing the same game, but the game, the subtle changes that they would make allowed the game to feel just slightly, ever so slightly different in the most interesting way. And being able to kind of water rail across to certain areas presented a unique challenge that we now had to figure out. And I mean, it was great. I actually was really rooting for that character. We never learned her name, but she was really important and it was kind of beautiful. We almost didn't need to learn her name. Neither did we need to learn the name of the character that we were playing as. It was just, you know, it was just one of those games where you could feel the emotion and you could feel the intensity and you could feel the determination to stop whatever cataclysm this giant steel serpent was causing. I love games that kind of allow you to interpret and interject a little bit of yourself into it. You're able to kind of devise your own story beats in a way. Like, the game is obviously giving you a visual representation of what to see. The music helps allow you to understand how you should potentially feel. But then it's like you get to invest yourself into the characters and the world and the lore. And I just think that that's such a cool way to make the game and the overall experience feel a lot more personal. And so, yeah, I love that they allowed that opportunity. And in terms of like lore, this game was actually really deep in the lore. I mean, all those little tablets we were finding, many of them were pretty straightforward, but a couple of them were kind of, you know, were very like unique in their presentation, kind of displaying the story in sort of a poem in a way, which I found to be really interesting. And so, yeah, it was, I mean, you know, I decided the serpent was a hater. My gosh. The serpent definitely was a hater. Definitely was a hater. For sure. For sure. But all in all, I feel like this game, I mean, it was a very intimate experience. It felt larger than life in a way, especially looking at that tower and even seeing the fields that felt so far away when we were actually getting to points in the game, into the chapters in which those structures were a lot closer. You realize just how small you were, like, as the character, and it made the whole world feel that much grander. It's like I said, when we were at the Shadow Tundra, I never felt smaller than when I was in this area. However, ironically enough, this is the area where we felt the most alive, and you just could feel the cold and the breeze and the snow, and you could feel the decline in the temperature, but it also just, you could feel your heart racing as you're grinding down the snowy mountains, and it was just really cool. I mean, they did such a great job of placing you in the middle of it, and I just think it was really cool. From the music to the gameplay to the actual game mechanics to the game difficulty, you know, it feels like all of those were intentionally curated to provide an experience that didn't feel pressure. You know, you didn't feel like you were on your last heart about to die. You know, there was no health bar. There's really no dying in this game. You know, you could technically die, I guess, but that was supposed to happen. And so all of it just feels like it was perfectly curated to create an experience that was based on the story and the characters, and not so much like difficulty or challenge. And I mean, I don't know. I think it's a beautiful thing. I don't know. I just say all that to say, if you're on the fence about this game, I highly recommend it. I definitely think you should try it. It was to me an incredible game. To me, in many ways, it was as close to perfect as you could get. I mean, honestly, I still don't know what the shells did. We were collecting these shells all throughout the game. No idea what they did, but they were fun to collect, and I enjoyed finding them. You know, I thought that was really cool. I just wish there was like a purpose to them. I wish we could trade them in and get potentially special skills or something. I would say for me, and this isn't to say that these are areas where I feel like the game lacks or lacked. I just think that if they were evolved upon a little bit more, they would have been even better. I wish that instead of turning in your coins that you were collecting for the next skill, it would have been cool to have a skill tree that had a variety of different skills. You know, even if it was only like 10 or whatever, it would have been cool to have a skill tree that we could select the skills that we want. So that way there's a little bit more risk and reward, right? Like all of the skills that you could get have benefits, but just depends on your play style or what you want to do or what tricks you want to use. Because I think that the tricks were really the thing that was making the game feel diverse and interesting. And I don't know, some of those skills that we were getting earlier didn't feel that useful. And so it would have been cool to go to that guy that we were giving our coins to and actually be able to select certain skills that we could then take and do, I don't know, like certain tricks that we could buy, because we didn't even get all the tricks. I mean, the next one required 5,000. I don't know how we were going to get that, but it looks like there's a new game plus, so we could essentially get the final skills if we just want to just keep playing it. But it would have been cool to have like a skill tree, and then potentially have special bonuses or something that you could get. Like, I'm not a big fan of like digital art books or anything, but I do like when in the game you have like a gallery or something, and we could look at early concept art, or, you know, maybe a musical library or something, play some of the songs from the game, because I feel like the music in this game is easily one of its shining aspects. And so I think outside, like stuff like that, I think would have been really, really good. But for me, it didn't detract from it. It's just like a little, but outside of that, I don't know if there's anything I really would have changed about this experience. you know, or added to it to make it better. I think everything that they did was beautiful. It was incredible, and for a game that it was easily my most anticipated game of the year, I mean, it didn't disappoint. Perfect length, incredible story, and in so many ways, it was just an incredible game. So I'm happy with it. I highly recommend it. You know, add it to your Steam wish list or whatever it is that you want to add it to for the next Steam sale or something. But I think even at full price, this was well worth the cost of admission.